Hey everyone, so you figured out how to calculate the area of two-dimensional shapes like a circle, a square, a rectangle, but now you want to step up your game just a little bit where you want to calculate the area of irregular shapes. Irregular shapes are kind of like regular shapes, but you need a trick to turn them from irregular to regular. My name is Peter, and in this video, I'm going to show you a simple way to do that. Let's get started. The first thing we're going to do in this video is define 2D shapes and area. So the simplest definition of a 2D shape is a shape that has a length and a width. They only have 2 dimensions. That's where 2D comes from. The other important definition is area. So area is the amount of space inside a 2D shape. It can be a regular shape or it can be an irregular shape, but it has to be a 2-dimensional shape. In this video, we're going to focus on regular shapes because we know the formulas of those regular shapes. Some of the examples of 2D shapes are circles, squares, rectangles, triangles, diamonds, semicircles, and there are so many more 2-dimensional shapes. These are just a few of the 2-dimensional shapes that you've seen before. Now, each of the 2-dimensional shapes that you've seen in class or you've seen in this video, it's a regular shape. The wonderful thing about a regular shape is that we know its formula. So there are so many formulas, and I think all of these formulas will be provided to you whether you're doing the KCSE or you're doing the KCPE. To calculate the area of any of these 2-dimensional shapes is pretty easy. Probably KCPE level. But if you want to get to the next level, if you want to really push your skills, you want to be able to calculate the area of a composite or a compound shape. And that's what I'm going to focus on in this video. The area of shapes that are made up of several 2-dimensional shapes. Here's a strategy. If you want to calculate the area of some of these composite shapes, the first thing that you need to do is divide the shape into regular shapes, into smaller shapes. Number 2, so here's the first thing that you need to do if you want to calculate the area of compound or composite shapes. Divide the shape into regular shapes. These are obviously going to be smaller. Number 2, if the regular shapes are outside of each other, then add the areas after you calculate each individual area. Finally, if some of the regular shapes are inside another shape, then subtract them from the bigger shape. So let's take a look at some examples. The first area we're going to calculate is of this shape here that's not drawn to scale. This shape is an irregular shape, but if we can divide it into regular shapes, then we can find the area of those regular shapes and then add them up. So if we draw a line down here, we can divide this into a rectangle and a square. The rectangle is A and the square is B. The other thing that we need to do is to find the length of this side A, and that is simply 8 minus 3 equals to 5. So now we're ready to find the area of A, which is just simply multiplying 2 sides, 5 times 9, and you get 45. And then you need to also find the area of B. Area of B is just 3 times 3 equals to 9. So now, since these two areas are outside of each other, all we're going to do is add them. So the total area is going to be 54 centimeters squared. You can still get the same answer if you divide that irregular shape differently. So instead of drawing a vertical line like we did in the first shape, we're going to draw a horizontal line. And this horizontal line still divides the shape into 2 rectangles, A and B. Rectangle B, the measurements are going to be 8 centimeters by 3 centimeters. With the other rectangle, we actually have to figure out the length and the width. The length in this case is going to be simply 8 centimeters minus 3 equals to 5 centimeters. The width of the rectangle A is going to be simply 9 centimeters minus 3 centimeters, and that's equal to 6 centimeters. If you do the calculation with these measurements, you'll still get the same answer of 54. Here's the second math problem. In this math problem, we have two shapes that make up the entire shape. Shape A, which is a triangle, and shape B, which is a semicircle. This kind of looks like an inverted ice cream. So we're going to calculate the area of the triangle, which is a half base times height, and the area of the semicircle, which is a half pi r squared. So the area of the triangle, we're going to multiply 1/2 times the base, which is 6, times the height, which is 4. 6 times 4 is 24, and then divided by 2, we get 12. Now we move on to the area of B, which is a half times pi times the radius squared. So the radius is going to be 3 because 6 is the diameter. So when you multiply all those numbers and divide by 2, you get 14.137. So once you got the area of the triangle and the semicircle, you add them together, and your total is going to be 26.137 yards squared. Here's another interesting question where we need to calculate the area of the dark part of this shape. So the first thing that we're going to do is identify the two shapes. The first shape is a big triangle and a small circle that's inside that triangle. So if you have a shape that's inside another shape, we know that we're going to have to subtract the two areas. So the first thing we're going to do is calculate the area of the triangle. So area of a triangle, I'm going to indicate it by this formula A of t, and that is given by a half base times height. The base is 16 and the height is 19. When you multiply 16 times 19 is 304, and then when you divide by 2, you get 152. The area of the circle, I'm going to indicate that by AC, is given by pi r squared. So pi times radius squared is going to be equal to 78.539. So like I mentioned earlier, we're going to subtract these two areas, and your final answer is going to be 73.461 yards squared. All right, quick pro tip. Whenever you're dealing with irregular shapes, start thinking about how you can divide that huge irregular shape into a small regular shape. Those small regular shapes can be easily calculated, and that's the pro tip. So now, after working on 3 questions that involved finding the area of irregular shapes, here's some 2 exercises that you can try on your own. Both of the exercises are pretty similar. They involved a triangle and a rectangle. All you need to do is figure out, should you add the 2 areas or should you subtract the 2 areas? Good luck!